Getty. Jacob Rees-Mogg was an investment banker before he became an MP in 2010. The 48-year-old Brexiteer MP previously worked for a number of famous banking firms, from J. Rothschild to Lloyd George Emerging Markets Fund, before he entered politics in 2010. Over the past couple of years he has become a darling of the Conservative Party, airing his traditional Tory views fluently and articulately, which has gained him quite a following, and even calls for him to become Prime Minister. However, former colleagues have revealed he was not always so confident, and his record during his time as an investment banker was not always one of a fighter. After graduating from Oxford with a history degree, Jacob Rees-Mogg joined J. Rothschild in 1991, then moved to Hong Kong 2 years later with Lloyd George before setting up Somerset Capital Management in London in 2007. "I am generally quite cautious," Jacob Rees-Mogg he told the Sunday Express in 2001. "I am generally quite cautious, so I am investing in companies with strong balance sheets and high dividend yields. Valuations in the Nasdaq are still crazy and we still haven't worked through last year's boom. You really want to be looking at fairly stodgy, cautious companies in the emerging markets." During his 3 years at Lloyd George Investment in Hong Kong, the fund was on the lower end of the MSCI Emerging Market Index, the benchmark for many emerging markets funds. In 2006, the firm, run by Robert Lloyd George, the great-grandson of the Liberal Prime Minister, rose by 12.9%, while the MSCI index had a 16.39% growth. Old Etonian Mr. Rees-Mogg has been an MP for 7 years, but first ran for a seat in Fife in 1997, something which may have moved his focus away from his former career. Reports at the time showed Lloyd George Emerging Markets Fund held only 40 stocks, with colleagues describing Mr. Rees-Mogg as defensive and focused on value. Samir Mehta, a former colleague in Hong Kong, said he was a conservative, careful investor. Damien Barry, from Seven Investment Management, who analyzed funds for 2 decades, said the consistent underperformance during that time suggests some poor stock selection. In 2006, the fund's largest individual holdings was a 3.65% share in Walmart de Mexico, the U.S. retailer's Mexico arm, and 3.64% in Mexican bank, Banorte. Walmart de Mexico's share prices halved that year and has never regained the peak it experienced at the beginning of 2006. The report said Lloyd George adopted a cautious outlook in advance of a correction in the markets that year. The note said, owing to the changing liquidity circumstances and our cautious outlook, the critical step of ceasing to market the fund to new investors was taken well before the correction in May. In the event of the correction, the fund lost ground because we were not aggressive enough in our repositioning. Getty. Mr. Rees-Mogg worked for Robert Lloyd George, the former PM's great-grandson. Getty. Mr. Rees-Mogg was friends with Hong Kong's last governor, Chris Patten, and often visited his home. Mr. Rees-Mogg and some colleagues left Lloyd George in 2007 and set up Somerset Capital Management in London, but when he was elected as MP for North East Somerset in 2010, Mr. Rees-Mogg stepped down as chief executive. After that, Somerset boomed, with the MP giving his colleagues all the credit for the company's portfolios doing better than others and assets quickly heading into the billions. Mr. Rees-Mogg is no longer listed as part of Somerset's team, but still receives an average of £11,730 a month as a partner. However, he is giving his shares back gradually. The firm says it has £6.7 billion, $8.9 billion under management, and 18 investment managers in London and Singapore, and partners shared more than £21 million in the year to March. Dominic Johnson, who took over from Mr. Rees-Mogg as Somerset's chief executive, said Lloyd George had been a rather wonderful firm and highly successful when he was there with Mr. Rees-Mogg. He added, "It was a bull market in those days though, and I haven't seen one of those for years in EMS.